Good morning, people of the internet. You're listening to Debi Radio 79.5 FM, a podcast where we discuss the movie Grosse Pointe Blank 1 minute at a time. I'm your co-host, Hugh.
And I am your other co-host, Dev. And on today's show, we are going to be looking at minute 84, where Martin finally escapes Bob and his emotions. Paul seems to be having a little more success on the dance floor than we've been seeing previously. And Martin decides that it is time to shred that joint that he's had hiding in his locker all these years.
Joining us on today's show, as he has been all week, we have the return of Billy Holker, who's a professed all-around nerd and martial artist. Welcome back, Billy.
Hey, thank you very much for having me back. It's been a great week. So much fun. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. It's a joy to have you here. So, here we are in the darkness of a school corridor. And you mentioned a few episodes ago, we were all talking about the spookiness, the weirdness of a school after hours.
Yeah, why is it so creepy? It's like a haunted house.
Right. So having been a teacher twice now and been in various schools, and I have spent some late nights in school, sadly. It is the fact that you are so used to the institution when it has people. The moment it doesn't have people, the effect is way more pronounced than if you just walked into it empty. Like, I'm so used to going into schools when they open and early in the day, so it's empty at the start and empty at the end, that actually I have to adapt as the kids start to roll in and the noise level starts to ramp up. And then then at the end of the day, as they all leave, it gradually comes down again. But yes, it is spooky. You are so used to the echo of voices and people and the sound of footsteps and lockers and bags and laughter and it's just none of it's there. None of it's there. And when you have these big American style high schools as well, with these huge wide corridors and these doors, it's more like a hospital, right? Over here in the design, the size and scale of it. Our schools are not like this over here. And so it's creepier still, because like when I see scenes like this, if I didn't know we were already in a school, I would be hard pressed to tell this apart from like a hospital scene in a Halloween movie. There's something about the American institutions on film. They look like this, whereas English schools, even like 60s and 70s ones, can still have more character and be narrower and more and more old fashioned. But yeah, schools generally, it's like. Yeah, it's the same as hospitals. It's the same as I imagine any institution where during the day it's full of life, and then at night it's empty, and it's just that spookiness. There's no, it's not like an office, right? Because I've spent late nights in offices in London, right? And it's you got carpeting and soft furnishings, and it's not the same. The spookiness is not there. It's brightly lit, not here.
Yeah. I mean, schools are like hospitals, right? They're kind of anemic, clean. They don't have any warmth to them, right? Or anything to even warm the sound, like carpeting or upholstery.
Yep. It's spooky. Full stop. Billy, you probably remember this film because I think you saw it. I think you were at Fright Fest with me when we saw it. There was a film several years ago, an independent British horror film called F. I can't remember what they renamed it for the US because it was renamed, but it's basically a John Carpenter-esque siege movie. But instead of being inside a police station, it's about a bunch of teachers trapped in their school after hours by a bunch of kids with hoodies outside who are slowly attacking them and killing them off one by one. And it's really, really well made film. But it completely owned that idea of the school as the spooky location after hours. It's just it's a lovely film, and lovely is not the right word. It's a nasty film. It's brutal, but it is also it owns that moment of schools after hours are weird places.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I'll look out for that one if we can find out what the US title would be.
Yeah, UK title's definitely F, as in the grade. And I remember the Q&A at Fright Fest was fascinating because so Billy and I met through a group of friends who work in the film business, and you grew up with most of them, didn't you? In Harrow, and we all go to the same horror film festival every year, right? London Horror Film Festival. And so we're used to this kind of process of things where you get new films that are premiered. There's usually cast and crew, and there's usually a Q&A, and there's usually a microphone, and people queue at the end to ask the question, right? But it's also a very alternative crowd because it's horror movies. And the amount of people who are asking this poor director, like, but why did you make the teacher sympathetic? Like, he got asked that so often that he got fed up with the question. And I was like, I'd been out of teaching at that point, I think 7-8 years. And for me, it was cathartic, man. Like the idea of a teacher grabbing a fire extinguisher and smashing the head in of some, attacking thug. So I actually said to the director when he went past me in the aisle, I flagged him down and said, thank you. It was great. And he was like, oh, phew. But yeah, so many people are like, well, they're teachers, so what? I don't care about them. Thanks, guys. But I mean, Martin looks like he could be a teacher there.
Yeah.
I
have to say, right at the start of this minute, there's this moment which Martin, as he's leaving Bob DiStefano, he does this tap on the mantle of the thing, and I'm always jealous because I am someone who has never been tall enough to do that anywhere ever.
That's true. You're not.
Yeah. Thanks.
No. I'm just saying there'll be people can't see you on the podcast. You're sat down. Right?
I stand all of like 5'7", 170 centimeters.
I mean, Billy's not that tall. Are you, Billy?
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not sure I'm even tall enough to qualify for the Met or Armed Services in some things.
But I think they've taken that away. I'm not sure.
I was going to say I don't know anymore. In England, we're desperate enough. We'll take anybody. But no, you're right. It is a thing. We've talked to them before in this podcast about Cusack's height and the way the film uses the height or disguises the height.
Yep.
And this is one where, because Cudlitz is relatively tall as well, it's felt like a reasonably even sort of positioning. But then as he walks away and does that, you realize just how big he is. Yeah. But it is also a thing when you're an adult and you go back to a school, you do kind of go, oh my God, everything's so small. This is so weird. I remember it all being a certain size,
Well, the earlier in the movie, it's like everybody has swollen.
Yes, well said.
Yeah. It's not just the ladies and the bellies, is it? Yeah. So cut back to the dance floor. Spirecki getting down with Jenny Slater.
Yeah, Paul Spirecki seems to finally be having some validation in his life, as he put it.
Yep.
Well, I guess we never do find out how far that goes, but it seems like Jenny Slater is at least not pushing him away like she was with Bob DiStefano when he was getting a little toasty in last week's minutes.
Yeah. I do wonder. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. These sorts of things are so weird, isn't it? The chemistry of it all.
Yeah.
It's like, why? And then Martin back again to the very simple lighting.
The very well illuminated corridors compared to the corridors that are literally downstairs next to the gym where people actually are. Like, I'm not entirely sure I understand why the stairwells in the upstairs corridors are all perfectly well lit when you probably wouldn't expect people to be going that far away.
I think that's probably a health and safety thing. It's a stairwell. Someone falls down and you get sued.
But the corridor upstairs as well, like...
Well, yeah, I guess. It is kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know, American schools.
I mean, atmosphere, right? Like, I think it's all for the atmospheric narrative of the scenes that are held downstairs versus upstairs. It's also,
but also we've talked about the fact that this school is used so often in American films. And I do wonder how much of that has to do with the way it looks and how much of that is set dressing, where they're like, no, take that lamp off, change it, put this in instead. We want that to look like that.
Yeah.
So French Club meeting, Wednesday, room 26, which makes me laugh because I used to have room 28. Saturday is school cleanup day. So wait, what? Who's in on a Saturday? I thought that was punishment in American schools.
Jobs worths.
Yeah. Or is that what it means? If you make a mess, you'll be in on Saturday to clean it up.
Yeah, it's like detention.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And then we get the corridor with the lockers. And of course, in America, lockers are built in. as opposed to the extraneous units that we have here in England, which you
I
can
think
pull
you
down
get
on
both.
someone.
I think you get both.
Probably.
As
but
somebody that
within-
also didn't go through the American school system, I feel like there
Yeah.
are both. But
Okay.
the banner that I want to talk about is "The Future is Unwritten."
Please do. On
Because-
Martin's left as he walks towards his
Yeah,
locker.
so he walks right past it as he rounds the corner from the stairwell to his locker.
Halfway through this minute.
This is a quote and a mantra of Joe Strummer's. So this is another thing of Joe Strummer's featuring, and he would later, after this film was made, go on to write an autobiography entitled "The Future is Unwritten."
There we go. We go.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where he got this mantra from or what inspired it. I think there may be some Dickensian Tale of Two Cities influence on it, because the whole premise of A Tale of Two Cities is this look for optimism in the future, and a lot of the book is spent talking about like what hope, if any, there is for the future, and I think that's a sentiment that spoke pretty strongly to Joe Strummer and his work, and honestly to a lot of punk musicians of the time, through especially through the 70s and the 80s of Thatcherism and Reaganism in the US. Troubled as the future was, it was the unknown future, and in its obscurity there was ignorant hope, and that, I think, sows the seeds of "The Future is Unwritten."
I see. See, I haven't taught Tale of Two Cities, and nor have I had to read it as a student, so that is news to me, and I'm fascinated by it. That's very Dickens in the sense of his attempts to bring hope in a world that was very much losing it.
Yeah.
That's really
very much like Martin's character. Then.
Yes, absolutely. And do you know what? Cusack's done a couple of period dramas here and there as an American, but he's one of the few. He's one of those modern actors whose face would fit well in a Victorian period. Like, not every actor looks like they should be in the past. I've always said this, particularly with Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. He makes his best effort, but to me, he always looks too modern in that and far and away. He just doesn't look right. He looks like he should be on a motorbike somewhere with a leather jacket. He does not look right or sound right to me.
Destruction of the joint here is an interesting statement, because a lot of this film, we've kind of been talking about him coming back to where he was as a child, right? Like he left high school and he took a hard right and went into the army, and then went on to become this man that he is now, and he goes back to high school, back to his reunion, in an attempt seemingly to move kind of back to what he was as a teenager, when he was surrounded by friends and social and happy, seemingly. And then it feels like this act is kind of a clear statement of like, actually, no, he's not going back. He's going on a different path, right? He's not trying to return to that either. He wants something new.
And like, obviously we've had numerous references to drug use in these scenes at this ball,
right?
And
this plays well for the war on drugs sentiment of like, hey, drugs are bad, okay, that you had in the late 90s.
Yeah, but I think it's also a point about Martin. Martin did have one. He did do. He was like other stoner kids at the time in some ways, but he's moved beyond that now. And in the next minute, we'll see just how far he's gone beyond that.
Yeah.
But yes, as you say, the route he's taken, very different.
Also, how long has that joint been in there for?
10 years.
Oh, wow.
10 yeah, exactly.
Years.
Definitely dried out.
Yeah. But the fact that he felt the need to go back to try and find it at all is, I think, an interesting.
Well, he said he had something to do with his locker. Is that what he had to do, or is that a coincidence?
No, I think that is what he went back to do. Because we'll see tomorrow, but he actually closes his locker before he sees Felix. that was the thing he went back to the locker for. He picked the lock. He went straight for the joint. He wasn't interested in the contents of the locker otherwise.
But no, you're right. He really does go straight for it.
I do like that little cheeky smile that he has when he picks the lock and it opens, and he's like, "Oh, so this is going to be great," I think that a bit of a wave of nostalgia and the curiosity as well as to see whose locker it is now, and I guess all the memories are flashing back.
Yeah.
But yeah, also at the same time, it's been 10 years. The amount of kids that's gone through that locker, no one's found that joint.
I mean,
he does reach really far to the back, and we did say he's really tall
That's true.
as well.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
But I agree with you.
Yeah.
It does seem really weird it's still there.
At some point, you'd expect someone to bang on it or something, and it to get knocked loose or whatever. But
opens up.
Also, kudos to the props team for making a joint that it really does feel like it's been up there for 10 years. Like, I'm sure it's just an unbleached cigarette paper and some herbs or something, but it does look the part. It looks properly aged.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. It absolutely
when he
does.
flicks it off, it's just that bit of disgust. He goes like, ugh.
Yeah, a little bit of it, isn't there? Oh, it is such a strange thing. But yeah, that whole long shot of the corridor as well, very spooky. Very spooky. Those lights and everything. Just I keep wondering how much of this is us as people who've been in places like that, and how much of this is just movies, right? Like, this is just such a classic horror movie setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same with hospitals, right? But I think there's a reason for that, right? Because they are places that are always full of people that are not experienced when they're empty, right? And even, I mean, it's hard to say because we get exposed to Hollywood for so much of our lives, and it's hard to distinguish where the influence comes from. But, when you're a kid and you're at school late for whatever reason and you're walking down the corridors, you do kind of have that spine-tingling moment every so often when you're like, there's no one around, and it is wrong to be like that.
Yeah, true. Very true. Okay, shall we call it there?
Yeah. This was minute 84 of the Grosse Pointe Blank podcast, Debi Radio 79.5 FM, featuring your hosts, co-writers, and co-producers, Hugh David, as well as myself, Dev Sodiger.
Today's guest, Billy, self-professed all-round nerd and martial artist. Where can people find you, Billy, online?
Thank you. You can find me on Instagram, doing some discussions where you see lots of pictures of food, and send me some recommendations, and I'll throw some recommendations back as well. So expand your horizons in regards to dumplings.
Fantastic. You can find us at all good podcast players, also on YouTube, X, and Spotify, in all cases at Debi Radio, DEBI Radio, and also our website, debiradio.com. And for all of those, it is DEBI Radio.
And if you want to talk with us, you can join us on our Facebook listeners group, Debi Radio 79.5 FM Fan Club.
Sure was clear that all of this was new. Concentrating hard like a little girl, smoking for the first time. It wasn't a